Welcome back to this episode of Real Business Roundtable. Today, we're going to tell you how to detect those flakes, those flighty people, the clients that are not serious, how to gauge a serious client. What do you think about that, Jake?
I think that's a great thing to know when you're talking to people and trying to do sales.
One of the main things that we have to worry about as growth consultants are people who are just information gatherers. They want to talk to you, sometimes waste time, and they're just trying to do it themselves. We want to give you the tips and tricks on how to detect what's really going on, maybe share a couple stories that will help you not waste time.
Tips and tricks.
Tips and tricks.
We're gonna share with you some tips and tricks.
I'm gonna do so. Wait, ready? You take it away. I'm gonna do what you do.
Hey, what up? Hey, so anyways, I like high protein cereal. I eat Catalina Crunch. Catalina Crunch. Catalina Crunch. I could do a little pop up.
We're tapped, bro.
The best protein cereal out there is Catalina Crunch. Oof. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to detect those flaky clients, people who are not really clients, they're just bullshitting. So here's a great example. I had a Fortune 500 contact me about something that back in the day, we were one of the first companies to ever offer video optimization. They didn't know what to do or how to do it. They brought me in for an initial meeting, spent an hour with the CMO of this very big company. Then we had a second meeting for like another hour. Then I had a 3-hour meeting that was a third meeting. I knew something was up when I was at the whiteboard and like 20 people walked into the conference room. And as I'm talking, they're asking questions, almost like training. And at that point, I said, you know what? I'm training these people.
Wait, why didn't you send them a consulting invoice?
Because nothing was agreed to. These were sales. This was technically like a discovery meeting for them to use us for video optimization.
You should have sent them a consulting invoice.
So I spent 3 hours with their team. 20 people waltzed into the conference room. It's a learning experience. People,
yeah.
You go through things, but I was in a situation where I'm like, okay, do I act like an asshole and leave, or I hold stuff back, or I just share my expertise to prove that I'm an expert? I said, fine, let me do this. I was on the whiteboard answering questions, and how do you do this? Well, how do you do that? How do you do this? And at that point was the realization that I'm probably training these people. Fast forward 2 weeks later, CMO sends me an email that they are now going to do what I was proposing. They're going to do it in-house. So, yeah.
So I guess what we're going to talk about a little bit is how to, when you're talking to a prospect for the first time, no matter what size the business is, things to look out for so that you're not wasting your time, essentially.
You want to feel their vibe when you're meeting with them. Just look at their mannerisms, talk about next steps, and see how they react to next steps. So what are next steps in our growth coaching? Our first step is a kickoff meeting.
But before that,
well, when we're identifying all their issues and we're talking to them about their goals.
Yeah. So when you're first talking to a person, you got to figure out if there is no interest or if there's interest. Because if there's no interest, there's no interest. If there's no interest, don't waste your time. There's no interest.
Yeah.
No interest means no interest. No interest doesn't mean there's a little bit of interest. There's just none.
So let's give a breakdown. Let's say a company comes to you and they want to do X, Y, Z, whatever the business is. You want to talk to them about next steps. See how they react.
That is a good one.
See how they react to that. And they're like, well, we don't know right now. Then you can gauge how serious they are.
Yeah.
So, well, that's a good concern. When do you anticipate moving forward on something like this?
I wouldn't even say that. Normally, I would just say, so this is how we get going. We're going to schedule a kickoff meeting, and then we're going to do this, do that, do this, whatever your process is to get a client going. And then how they react to you saying that is going to dictate how you continue the conversation.
Yeah, and then something's up when, like, not talking about doing it internally, but if they're shopping around.
Well, I can't.
When they call you right back. When we've received messages from people, yeah, I'm going in a different direction, and a month later or 2 weeks later, hey, let's meet again. and I know somebody was asking for an exorbitant deposit.
Yeah.
We don't do that in certain situations. We do it if someone has to commit to something significant.
Every client's
different, but I know that client couldn't afford something huge. So I'm like, okay, I know what happened there. Because if they come knocking on our door again, oh yeah, hey, let's work together. I'm like, okay, you were shopping around and you learned the real world of what's going on. But, it's very important to be able to look at these. Sometimes it's nonverbal cues, their motions, their movements, how they react to questions. So you always want to probe, ask questions. Ask them, how important are these goals to you? What does it mean to you if you hit these goals? How soon are you looking to reach these goals? If they say, yeah, I want to reach these goals in 12 months. Okay, well, we really need to get going now. Let's get the kickoff meeting scheduled, or let's get the process started now, because if you want to hit this goal in 12 months, that's cutting it close.
Yeah.
See how they react to that.
Yeah. So normally in the beginning of the sales process, we'll have a conversation with them, right? We'll have an introductory phone call or whatever, and you can really feel out their vibe then. If they're very, very, scatterbrained, they're not really focused on, meeting with you, it all depends. But I guess so this is for me, especially when I have gauged within the first 2 conversations with them, so over the phone, and then we sit down with them and we're talking to them, that's the point where I want to be able to gauge if they're interested or if they're not interested, if they're committing or if they're not committing. Because if I'm after that first initial conversation, if I sense that they're going to commit, then I'll take control of the conversation and I'll get into my consulting form, whatever you want to call it, where I'll tell them exactly what's going to happen, set their expectations, talk about client success stories, and then go right into how the setup process works. And then how they react to that is normally how it goes. Either they're going to say, you know what, let me take this and go talk to someone. And then, whatever, we talked about this before, you go and you try to talk to that person with them. Mm-hmm. But from the first initial conversation with them, how do you gauge their commitment, their level of commitment, their level of interest? How do you gauge that?
What I do is I set almost like I paint a picture for them, mm-hmm. and I try to see how they react to hitting $10 million a year.
So in person,
if they're like, yeah, I want to do that, then I know they're really interested. But if I'm setting these, like painting the picture, and they're kind of like, well, yeah, and just kind of weird and passive about it, they're not that serious.
One thing that I find that I kind of try to get out of that puts you in the situation with that big company is if they're asking a lot of technical questions, asking a lot of questions about, how the process works. You normally have answers to this stuff. So like if they, ask how we do this or ask how we do that, if it's over the phone, I'll say, I don't have too much time right now, but I'd love for this to be a conversation in person. Or if we're in person and they ask a lot of questions, I'll kind of gatekeep that information, because you might put yourself in a position where they're going to be asking you how to do it, kind of like what happened to him. And so that's how I deflect that situation. That doesn't happen very often, but when it does, I try to deflect it. I gatekeep very sensitive information. Sometimes I say, what we have is proprietary, and this is how it's, benefited this business. This is how it worked with this client, that's how you kind of get yourself out of the, getting into doing, teaching them how to do what you do. And honestly, if you're an agency or you're, a lot about digital, you're in sales, something that we've done is if they do ask a lot of questions about how does this process work? How does this process work? Provide a consulting, what is it called? Like a consulting, mentorship, be like, listen, not only do we do digital marketing, but we also teach people how to do it for a certain price. So that's, another way to get around that sort of stuff. And yes and no is that interest. I mean, a little bit, but it kind of, you got to really pay attention to social cues, to their body language in order to understand how to dictate the rest of the conversation. Their body language, the way that they're acting to what you're saying is going to give you exactly what you want to know on their level of interest. There's a lot of different ways to figure out if someone is serious or not. But what has worked for me and what has worked from Andy, at least what I've learned from him, is how to notice those social cues. I think we have an episode that actually talks about specific social cues, which, you know, like I said before, if you're new here, please go and check that out. There's a lot of great value on there. But, you know, I don't want to get too into this. I know this is going to be a short episode, but social cues is very big. You got to learn the social cues when you're meeting with people in person, especially. Also over the phone, there's definitely things you can notice that kind of dead giveaway their interest levels or what their intentions are with that conversation.
Yeah, sometimes they're just doing information gathering. They're like, well, you know, it's like when they start saying things like that, oh, yeah, they're kind of like dancing around the whole hiring you for why they call you. Well, it just, you know, I need some info and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes we'll get weird calls where people want us to analyze their other agency's work so they can go shit on them. And then they use us as leverage to get the other agency to like give them freebies or something like that. So they'll go, yeah, what do you think of this? And then well, this is how we would do it and this is how we would improve it. Then they go and then we follow up and they're like, yeah, I'm going to give my agency another chance. What was this? That's just like, I don't know. I think, you know, I think things like that business owners need to pay attention to. Let's even take home improvement, for example. If someone needs a quote for a new kitchen and they're just kind of shopping around bullshitting, rather than you wasting time, go for the close. Say, well, if I could get my crew in here, let's say they're available in 3 days. If I can get my crew in here on Wednesday, we'll get the kitchen done within 7 days, get the paperwork done. How does that work for you? If I can be here Wednesday or something like that, go in for the close, because at the end of the day, they want to redo their kitchen. Go in for the close and see how they react.
Yeah, tell them what day works for them, essentially. Don't actually tell them, but be like, Wednesday at 2, we'll be in the area. How about that? Or you know, just give them options rather than having them tell you what time. Taking control of the conversation in any sales position is very powerful. It shows confidence. It shows, you know, that you know what you want, and people respect that. But initially this was supposed to be a short episode, but I think that, you know, there's a lot of, I want to structure this conversation a little bit more because there's a lot of value that we can add in, and I don't think we've covered this fully in another episode, is really understanding, you know, body language when trying to figure out their level of interest or trying to figure out their attention. But we're going to keep it short today. So look forward to the next episode. Thank you so much for watching and joining us on Real Business Roundtable. Please like and subscribe, comment down below, share with your friends and family, turn on post notifications so that you get notified every time we post a new episode. Also check us out on Instagram for clips and updates and more information on us. Peace out.